Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to today's presentation. I am Ian Wilkinson, and you're listening to Evangelysm, and I'm here to share my love of raiding, priests, and having fun in the World of Warcraft and spending too much time in Azeroth, Outland, and more recently, Draenor. Today is Sunday, the 4th of October 2015. This is show number 31, and in Evangelysm this week, I'll give my views on this week's hot topics from around Azeroth. I'm asking if it's time for more realm connections in this week's Talk, and in This Is How We Do It, I'll be covering the first in a series of how to heal Hellfire bosses as I look at the Hellfire Assault. But first, as usual, I'll be covering my weekly update on my activities in WoW and in real life. This week in real life, I had my first review with my line manager. That's the first review since I started my new role. Well, it's not that new anymore, but my current role, we'll call it. Because it isn't that new anymore. I have had reviews in the past in my previous role, and yeah, so that's that piece. So I've had my review, and the signs are looking pretty good. I'm doing pretty well. I felt that I'm doing well, and to have it confirmed by my line manager is really, really good news. As it means that the extra hours and the effort that I'm putting into the role are actually being appreciated. I had to do something a little bit unusual, and it made me feel a little bit uncomfortable in some ways, which was to go to my peers, that's my colleagues, and ask them what they thought of the role that I was doing. And from that I got some really, really good feedback, stuff that I was doing really well, which I didn't actually realise people actually appreciated, and people point out some things that I thought I was quite weak on and they thought I was quite strong on. So that's a bit of a double-edged sword, because that means that I'm faking it rather than making it, if that makes any sense. So I'm given the perception of doing a good job, even if deep down in myself I know I could be doing that part of the job a lot better. But the best thing for me was where people were telling me that where my weak points were, because it means that they're the things that the public, as I like to call them, see me as being weak, and they're the areas that I need to improve on. And I've took it all in the spirit it was intended, as positive feedback, and it was delivered in a really good way. So that made me pleased, because I was a bit nervous that people would just be vindictive and nasty, because it's a workplace. I don't get on with everyone. There's some people I despise because of their work ethics. There's some people that I think are just complete and utter fools because they don't seem to have a clue, even though they're meant to be technical people doing a technical role. And it's not that I dislike them as a person as much, but I just don't like the way they work. And I'm sure you've all experienced this in your life, whether it be in-game, in the guild, in a raid team, in a soccer team, in a football team, in college, in life and work, even in your family, for hell's sake. I mean, hell, the worst thing with family is you can't choose who they are. You are literally born with them, or they're born into your family. And it's good to get that sort of appreciation from people that they are actually not nasty people, if that makes sense. Anyway, I'm rambling. The good news is that, as I said, my boss thinks I'm doing a good job. Obviously, he's pointed out things that I knew that I wasn't doing so well, and areas that they want to see me develop, and one of which he's looking at some project management skills and sort of formalising those, which is really good news. So yeah, and all I'm really hoping for now is that I get the ultimate loot drop of bonus gold. Well, real world money, but you know what I'm saying. And it's kind of odd, really, because in-game, if our bonus loot was gold, we go, nah, gold again. Whereas in real life, it is the big win, isn't it? And although, don't get me wrong, if my boss gives me a rare mount drop, I'm all for it, you know, as long as the financial side isn't crippling. But yeah, in the real world, money's king. Money is king, and the loot, if you ever get any, is more of just a pat on the back. It's the bonus rather than the other way around, which is kind of odd how we sort of flip that around in the online world when we're playing games, at least. Anyway, that's my work life. What I have noticed the last few days is that summer seems to be disappearing really, really fast. The thing that really triggers it home for me, hits it home, is the fact that it's almost dark outside when I'm raiding. I don't raid outside. Hell no. But it's dark outside, and that just is the first sign of summer really drawing to a close for me. And every morning this week, I've really had a lot of mist problems where I live, because where I live is out in the middle of fields. Well, not in the fields themselves, but in a village surrounded by fields. And it's been really, really misty, so much so that I half expected to see pandas when I get to the other side. You know, it's been horrible, and my new car doesn't have fog lights, and that's really made it a little bit scary for me, because I'm really missing my fog lights, even though I really used them on the previous car. It's because I know they're not there. It's because I've lost something that I had and I can't use them even if I want to, and I'm now noticing the slightest bit of mist and fog and that sort of thing. But hey, that's me. But yeah, so apart from that, really, I've got nothing to tell, as I've been a bit of a boring old git, if I'm perfectly honest. And yeah, I am old, but I try not to be boring. At least I don't think I'm becoming boring. So I'll shut up. I'll shut the hell up. Anyway, moving swiftly along. In game this week, it's been a mixed bag of sadness and joy because of what we've achieved as a raid team this week, which was our first clear of Hellfire Citadel in a single raid night. As a raid leader and as a GM, that makes me proud of my team. It really does. We've come a long way from struggling to clear it in 2 nights to now clearing it, even with Manorath and Archimond. We've cleared it in 1 night. Now, this week was also really odd for our raid team because normally we have 7 healers. Well, we've got a team of 7 healers, and that means about a quarter of the team, maybe even a third now, are healers. So we've been running a lot of the time with healers running as DPS, which is never optimal. We have started to get hit by the attendance boss though, and this week we only had 2 signed up until literally minutes before the raid started, and I was really concerned that we might not be able to take everyone on the raid who wanted to come because we only had 2 healers. Now we do have some of our very best DPS that have healer off specs, and I really don't like using them as healers, but obviously if it was a case of having to bench one so that we could run, I would have used one. But as luck would have it, our 3rd healer signed up late, or signed on late, and said, oh yeah, I can make it after all, sorry I didn't let you know earlier, blah 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 blah. And what we decided was to see how far we could 2 heal after doing Hellfire Assault, which is very much a 2 healer fight for us now, unless we've got more than 20 people. So, and we managed in the end to heal all the way. This is myself and a monk. I forgot what class he was. I was thinking panda, but I'm sure he's not even a panda. Yeah, we 2 healed myself, a disc priest and a monk. We 2 healed up to our Manorath. We did 2 heal Manorath for 3 of the wipes that we had, and even though we didn't feel that the wipes were actually being caused by a lack of healing, we did decide to go 3 heal. And whether it's coincidence, whether it was the need that we did need to 3 heal, or whether it was just because players felt that they could manage and do it with 3 healers, I don't know whether it was a psychological thing, but we did end up one-shotting it after we went 3 healers. And then when we moved on to Archimond, we 3 healed it. It is a tough healing fight, not so much at the beginning, but more at the end. And the strategy that we deploy is that everyone goes into the Shadow Realm, except for 1 tank and all of the healers. And the reason we do that is because it kills the beasties in the Shadow Realm really quick, that you don't need healers, and the healers can then just look after the other tank, and all of the healers are there in position for when people start coming out of the portals and everything starts to go a bit haywire. The only time we send healers in is when the Infernals are up, which is why we needed 3 healers, because it's not possible to 1 heal outside of the Shadow Realm when the Infernals are up. So we did that, and we 2-shot Archimond, which is our best sort of fight night, week night raid on him. And it does make me realise that we might actually be getting close to having him on farm. This is only our 3rd or 4th kill, I can't remember exactly the numbers now, but it's been hard the first few weeks. I mean, the first kill was always hard, it was time consuming, we had a lot of wipes on him, but now we're getting to that stage where we are now getting, whether it's the gear, whether we're just getting comfortable with the fight, whether it's a combination of both of those things. I think it is probably the more getting comfortable with the fight that everyone's now getting comfortable with it. We've still got a few people that haven't seen the fight, well, not having killed him anyway. So when they come in, it might spice things up a little bit. But generally, most people now know the fight. They know the timing of things. They know where to move. They know where the tanks are going to move, hopefully, because our tanks have been a bit all over the place with that recently. And like I said, we 2-shot him this week. So, and bizarrely, Manorath gave us more problems this week. I hate Manorath fight, I really do. I just do not like the Shadow Force. Purely because I get pushed off far too often. I don't know whether it's bad positioning, whether I strafe instead of run forwards, because I've got that nasty habit of not running forwards. I just tend to strafe forwards because I try and position myself in such a way that that doesn't happen, and I find that strafing actually makes you run off faster. So perhaps it's that, perhaps I've always sucked on that type of thing. Tycoon, I had the same issues. I try not to use body and soul on that part. Well, I use the body and soul, but I try not to shield myself before that comes in, because I feel that that makes me run off faster, and it's tough. It is tough, and that is the only movement speed increase that I have. I've got no way of leaping forward and that sort of thing. So actually, what I might do, this has just come to me as a piece of inspiration. I very rarely use life grip in a raid. I might reverse it so that it leaps me forwards to somebody else. Might try that this week. Good idea, Ian. Well done. So yeah, so that, as I said, made me really happy that we done really well in our raid week. However, it does now make me feel really sad, because that meant that basically the challenge of raiding is now gone for us. For me, for the raid team, for the guild at large, because as I mentioned last week, we're just so far off of getting a mythic raid team. Not because we've not got the skills, but we just don't have the players. And partly because of that, and partly because of everything else that's not around in game, our raiders are now going AFK more and more often. As I said, we started 2 weeks ago with 7 healers. This week we scraped up a third at the last minute, and that means 4 healers have just got life things to do and prioritising other things over raiding. So I'm now truly worried. I really am worried that the activity in the guild is going to dry up, and this far away from an expansion release, it's something that I really think it's just really, really bad, because I've seen guilds go into this hibernation phase before, and they really come out of it in good shape, if they manage to come out of it at all. Now, BlizzCon is now 4 weeks away from us, I believe. Yeah, 4 or 5 weeks. And I'm really hoping that we get something good out of BlizzCon, in terms of the raiding paradigm, the realm paradigm, the guild paradigms. There's a lot of paradigms there, and I'm really, really hoping that BlizzCon delivers something, because I'm hopeful for a change in something that will affect raiding. I don't know what that something is going to be, and of course, naturally, BlizzCon hype always tends to stimulate a few people, so those that are currently partial AFK or thinking of going AFK may well stay on if there's something good come out of BlizzCon. And that's the hope. That's the hope. I also had the realization yesterday, though, that I've stopped updating you on my alts progress. I did, and because I was busy yesterday, I was busy faffing, and I'm trying to promote the show a bit more in the podcasting community. And one of the things that I was doing was working on a little bumper piece. I've been playing with audio this week again. You'll find out soon enough. That I was doing something for another show. And it dawned on me when I was telling them what I was doing and what I'd done, that I hadn't updated you on my alts. So one of the big things was that I used to update you on my Garrisonless Shaman, and I apologise for the noise that you might be hearing in the background. It's a buzzing noise. If you can hear that, that's my a strimmer in the garden next door. Damn them! I can't even go and tell them to shut up. But never mind. Yeah, so my Garrisonless Shaman, Micmac, I have actually managed to get her to 100. Now, I did this before flying was introduced too, so I didn't cheat and just fly around picking up all the treasures. I did it the way that it was intended to be done by Blizzard, assuming you didn't get a garrison. Now, it wasn't all as easy as it should be. It wasn't what we call plain sailing. So, yeah, it really wasn't plain sailing at all. So, the story goes that, well, the story is I just wanted to level 1 a character garrisonless because Blizzard claimed it was optional content, okay? Now, what I found early on was that Shadowmoon Valley has very few quests if you do not do a garrison. So I did all of the quests that I could do, I did all of the bonus objectives, and moved on to the next zone. Now, as I moved into Talador, what's the next zone after Shadowmoon? Gorgrond, I got offered the build a garrison outpost quest, even though I've not got a garrison. Yep. So it was a kind of a very odd. Also, a lot of NPCs call me commander, even though I'm not a commander, because I don't have a garrison. You know, I'm not yet given that commander status. And as I said, I built my garrison outpost in Gorgrond, did the rare killing there, the quest that I could get, and also the bonus objectives. Again, I did those, and eventually moved on to Talador. As I moved into Talador, again, I got offered the quest to build a garrison outpost. So it seemed that the garrison outposts were a feature that wasn't tied to having a garrison, which sort of suggests to me that Blizzard didn't ever expect us not to build a garrison, and therefore didn't even think to put in a logic test. Is there a garrison? Yes. Okay, let them have this. Is there a garrison? No. Screw those guys, they ain't getting a garrison outpost. But I do get a garrison outpost in those zones. Now, I didn't go deeper into any other zones because I leveled, by the time I entered, as I entered Spires of Iraq, did the introduction quest there, and there's a lot of treasures in Spires of Iraq, and I managed to ding before I got to the point where I was able to be offered the Garrison Outpost. Whether that happens or not, I do not know, because I didn't progress further than dinging 100. Other odd things are you can go and see Khadgar, go and get the legendary quest line started. I don't know how far you can progress through it, but I'm guessing from what I've done on the other ones, I'm going to hit a brick wall as soon as I start needing the shipyard, which is where where Khadgar turns up partway through. Now, that leads me on to my next point. The shipyard is a prerequisite for entering Tanam. Well, I say entering Tanam, it's for getting any of the quests into Tanam. Now, I've been into Tanam. I can pick the treasures up, I can kill the rares. However, I do not get offered anything in Lion's Watch because Lion's Watch doesn't exist. You need the shipyard to get the quest to open up and build Lion's Watch. So therefore, I get no quests, I can't get any of the dailies, and in theory, if I wanted to fly, or if I didn't have an alt to get the flying on, I wouldn't be able to fly because I cannot get rep with the major factions in Tanam, because I cannot get the quest. Thanks, Wizard. Thank you all. Thank you all. Not going to happen. So it really does show that the garrison isn't what I'd call really optional. It's optional in as much that you don't need to do it, you don't have to do it, and I've proven that you can get to 100 and not have to have a garrison. But there's so many things lost to you. It's a choice thing to do. Do you want to play the game and have all of the content Blizzard give you, or do you want to get to 6.2.2.2.2.2 and get no additional content offered to you other than grinding mobs? Because that is all you will get out of 6.2 if you do not have a garrison. And the odd thing there as well, by the way, if I go into the area where the garrison should be, I can see where all the quest givers should be. So I'm being offered technically I am being offered a quest to pick up the mission to go to Iron Docks, because on my map Varian Rin is there in my garrison that isn't there to give me the quest. Anyway, that's that on the alts, because that's basically all I've done with my... Oh no, it's not, I lie. I've done a little bit of work on my Paladin, Eusabian, who I'm now currently trying to gear up as a tank, just in case I'm needed as an alt tank in our alt raids. So yeah, that's basically all I've done. I've done a little bit of the time walk and stuff, which is a bit meh, a bit too easy. Well, I was saying that the other day, in one of the dungeons I was running on my Hunter, and we had all sorts of problems where the tank and the healer couldn't keep each other safe. Either the tank would die or the healer would die. I don't know if I was being trolled in there or something, because I was doing 80% of the damage in there, and as gear is normalised, it's not a gear thing. I don't know if I was in with the guild group. I didn't check. I don't ever check these things. I might have just been being taken for a mug. But hey, we got through eventually. A few wipes in there. It was in Alcatraz. I don't know if it's a particularly hard one. I've never found it hard when I've done it on any other character. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, moving along now onto the guild. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, I'm really concerned that the next few months are going to be crucial, not only to the survival of my guild Exhumed, but my server as well, because I'm not sure that the game is offering many players compelling content outside of raiding, and the raiding itself is all but over for my guild at least, but on the server we've got so few mythic grade guilds as well that I don't think the game can offer my server much, and I'm sure my server isn't unique in this. Not every guild is mythic raiding. A lot of guilds are now unable to maintain a raid team, and it just means that things are going to have to be pugged. Players that are sticking around are going to have to pug stuff, and now you can't pug mythic, and I really wouldn't want to be pugging heroic at this point, at least not on the main. I may do on an alt, I may do, but I don't know, I really don't know, and the only thing that can save the game apart from pugging is a load of guild mergers, and that's going to end up with a lot of old long-term raiding guilds disappearing, and that's not good, it's not cool. So I don't know where that leads the game, I don't know where that leads my guild. We're obviously planning on recruiting hard. We're trying to make sure that we can try and basically scrape up every new member that we possibly can. We have seen a little bit of a rise in new members, unfortunately not in raiding terms but in guild terms. We've always recruited socially, as well as for raid teams, as well as for RBG teams, and we need to maintain that just so that we're not a casualty of this drought of content. And as I mentioned a few seconds ago, I'm really hoping for a miracle from BlizzCon. I really am, because if that doesn't happen, if something big doesn't happen at BlizzCon, I dread to think what's going to happen for the game. We're already down to 5 million subscribers. We're due for the end of this quarter's announcement in the not too distant future. Where quarter 4 will land, I really don't know. I dread to think where quarter 4 figures are going to land, because it just doesn't feel good out there on the realm. It really doesn't. So that's basically my concerns for my guild. It's not really an update because there's not really much to update on the guild, except for we are recruiting heavily and we will take anyone. We've always been one of those guilds that survive these storms. Generally Christmas, summer, end of expansion are 3 really tough times for raid guilds, and we've always managed to maintain a raid presence while in these sort of situations, and this would be the first time that we've failed at that, if we do indeed fail. And we've picked up a lot of our good members through being active at this time, so I've got hopes. I have really got hopes. But as I said, if your guild is in the same position, please get in touch, let me know, let's have a conversation about it. And if your guild has already collapsed and you are looking for a new home, either on Shadowsong EU or in general, if you're looking for a new home anywhere and you are prepared to realm transfer, we would love to take you under our wing. I can't promise miracles, I can't promise anything except a true desire and a load of effort on the part of myself and the part of my officer team to make you feel at home and welcome here, and to make things work out the best we possibly can given the circumstances that Blizzard have given to us. If that sounds appealing, and I can't think of why what I've just said wouldn't be putting you off more than actually attracting you here, please do give us a look. If you are really serious looking for a new home and are prepared to realm transfer, we are Alliance side, of course. Why wouldn't you be Alliance side? Please do give us a look up. It sounds like I'm begging, partly because I am, but partly because I don't want other people to suffer alone. If you're not enjoying the game because you've lost your guild, please do give us a look. We will gladly take you in. We will make you feel at home. Okay, so please do look us up. I will give you our website address now. It is www.exhumed-guild.co.uk. That's www.exhumed-guild.co.uk, however you want to say that. So that is it for this section. If you'd like to get in touch with questions or feedback, please email podcast@evangelysm.com. That's EVANGELYSM, or tweet me at evangelismcast. That's EVANGELYSMCAST. I'll be back with the news in a few seconds. You're listening to Evangelism. You're listening to Evangelism. You're listening to Evangelism. Welcome back. This is me, I am Ian Wilkinson, and you're listening to the news here on Evangelism. Unfortunately, there are not so much news. These are basically bug fixes for this week. There are some pieces of snippets of news, but there really is not much news coming out of Blizzard or the community at the moment, partly because of the state of the game. I know I keep droning on about this, but the game is not helping me here. It really isn't. It isn't. Anyway, swiftly on to the real news. Some of the paid character services have been introduced into the in-game shop. So now, not only can you buy a level 90 boost, you can now purchase an appearance change, which effectively puts your character back at the character customization screen. You know the one when you create your character? Yeah? Well, it basically puts you back at that screen, as you can change anything about your toon, with the exceptions of race and class. Okay? But you can also change your race to a race on the same faction via that method as well. So there is another option to buy a race change. So if you want to change from a dwarf to a human, or a goblin, to a goblin to a Forsaken, you can do that by doing that. Also, if you do want to change factions from the Filthy Horde to the Glorious Alliance, you can do a faction change, which gives you the ability to do everything except choose a new class. Or if you really just want to change your name, you can do a simple name change. Now the prices will obviously vary. They are all... Sorry? Oh. Apparently the faction change will also let you change your faction from the Glorious Alliance to the Filthy Horde. Okay, well, who would want to do that? No. Oh well, takes all sorts of guess. So apparently you can change your faction from Alliance to Horde and Horde to Alliance, which is the obvious way to do it. You only make the mistake once. But, so as I was saying, you can just do all of these things in the in-game shop. Okay? Now, I don't know whether this is just a way of encouraging players to do it more often. I don't know whether people are not doing it and they're hoping that people will see it in the in-game shop and it will become more popular. That is the only thing I can do. Or whether they're just doing it to make things convenient for us folks who want to do these things. Okay, moving on. Hellfire Citadel has seen some hot fixes this week, all of which have been major nerfs to some of the bosses on normal mode. Every one of these things that I'm about to announce is nerfs to normal mode boss or boss encounters. If there is a couple of things that are hitting the Raid Finder version 2, I will mention those specifically, but most of these things impact only normal raid bosses. Okay, moving on to the first thing, the Dear Dark Whisper encounter. Her Wailing Horrors have had their damage reduced by 30%. This is in the Hellfire High Council encounter. Okay, in the Kilrog fight, his Heartseeker ability, which is the one that you get targeted with an arrow on the floor from him, you have to get the hell out of here and stand at the back of the room in the middle with the DPS on either side. Yeah, that fight. Well, now apparently you don't really need to get out of the middle, because on normal mode only, the Heartseeker will now only deal damage to the victim and anyone caught in between the boss, and the victim will now also not trigger additional globules if the Heartseeker hits other people on the way through. Nah, why do they kill these things? Why do they kill these fights? Anyway, now also significantly the reduced health of these blood globules and the fell blood globules will make it easier to kill them as well. So they have really hit that fight hard. They've removed one of the main mechanics that was causing people to wipe and get overrun with oozers, and also the oozers are now easier to kill as well. Significant nerf to that fight if you've been stuck on that fight, and I know that a lot of guilds have killed that fight many times, but there are a lot of other guilds that just get stuck on that boss, and it is the Heartseeker that tends to cause the wipes. Moving on to the next boss in the line here, we have Gorefiend. He has now forgotten how to use Shared Fate on normal and Raid Finder difficulty. So this one affects Raid Finder and normal. Okay, the Shared Fate ability, which is the one that fixates on one person, roots them in place, two other people have to run to that person to free them. That ability is now gone from the Gorefiend encounter, except for Heroic and Mythic. So that mechanic still exists on the harder difficulties, but not on the lower two difficulties. Also, the Gorefiend Construct's Hunger for Life will now only affect the fixated target rather than anyone foolish enough to stand in its path or next to the victim. Now, apparently this was being a problem for Raid Finder, and a little bit more on, or not a little bit less I should say, on normal difficulty, because what was happening during the Feast of Souls phase, where everyone hugs up, everyone was hugging up and ignoring the ads, and when the ads reached the group, boom, everyone died. Oh boy, why do people play so bad? Why do people play so bad? But they were. Okay, so they've removed it from normal and Raid Finder difficulties so that people don't grief other groups. Why people do that, I've no idea. I really don't know. But hey, the next encounter that has had some significant changes is the Tyrant Velhari's Aura of Oppression and her Aura of Contempt. I think the other one is, yeah, Contempt. Those two abilities have been nerfed. Now what's happened here is the Aura of Oppression, which is the debuff that deals damage to players if you move, that ramps up in the damage that it does over time. And what's happened there is they've reduced the way that that scales. So I'm making figures up here. If at the start it deals 10 damage, and by the end of 20 seconds it does another 2 damage, so it's now got up to 12, and then by the end of a minute and a half it's up to 100. What they've done is they've scaled it back so that it'll take longer to get to 100, and by the time you get her into the next phase, she'll probably only be at 50 instead of that 100. Similar thing with her Aura of Contempt, the stacking healing debuff, which is the one that prevents you from healing above a certain percentage of health. That now, well, that happens in stage 2, by the way. That now increases its effect over time more slowly as well. So instead of being 5% per 5 seconds, it's now, say, 3% every 5 seconds. Again, those figures are made up. It's just an example, okay? However, she is not the last one who has had nerfs. There are some more bosses left yet. There are 2 abilities in the Zul'Harak fight that have been hit, and these are the ones that increase the crud on the floor, you know? That's the Wild Pyromaniac's Fell Orb no longer creates patches of chaotic Fellblaze, and the unstable Void Fiend ability, Volatile Void Step, also no longer spreads the Creeping Void. So that's the green crap and the purple crap that you get dropped on the floor that will eventually meet and explode and wipe. And that has now been removed as a mechanic in Raid Finder and normal difficulties again. Okay, now that is the normal bosses left, but the biggest nerfs this week go to Archimond, who seems to have been through the Warlord's ability pruning, because he no longer uses Wrought Chaos at all on Raid Finder and normal difficulty, and he also doesn't actually summon Living Shadows on Raid Finder and normal difficulty as well. It says in the notes here that his nether portals created by Nether Banish also no longer create no longer summon Living Shadows. Now I don't know whether the Living Shadows will come out of another mechanic. I believe they do only come from the nether portals created by Nether Banish, so I'm assuming that the Living Shadows as a mechanic has been removed from normal and Raid Finder difficulties. This I can only assume is because there were still too many wipes happening on those difficulties even after 3 months. Now this is a major change to normal raiding, and while it's disappointing to see the nerfs to what I consider proper raiding, which I do consider normal raiding still proper raiding, it does now give more separation between the 4 difficulties of raid. I mean, LFR was, well, Raid Finder was always not really raiding in my opinion, but it is classified as raiding, and therefore I will count it as a 4th difficulty. It is very easy mode, but it plays hard because of the way people play together, or don't play together there. Anyway, I'm not going to go out on that rant. I've done it way too many times, and I'll probably do it way too many times again in the future. But it does give this separation between the difficulties, particularly between normal and heroic. As previously, almost every single normal and heroic fight, the only difference was that the heroic bosses now hit harder and had more hit points. So in some ways that makes a lot of sense. What we're seeing here is the separation of the difficulties, and rather than nerf the abilities so that they become meaningless, what Blizzard have done is actually quite good for raiders, because it gives the removal of an ability means that players don't just ignore it. That makes sense, yeah? So rather than Wrought Chaos now dealing no damage so that it doesn't really matter, it now doesn't happen, and therefore when people say, oh, what are the differences between this difficulty and this difficulty? Oh, you now got a new ability called Wrought Chaos that you need to do this with, rather than them just ignoring it. It stops bad habits forming when you progress between the 2 difficulties. And that's exactly how Mythic works from Heroic. There are new abilities that the boss has, and that's how it always should have been, and I think Blizzard maybe realised they made a mistake by making normal and heroic very different qualities of raiding, but not having different mechanics. It means that guilds progressing from normal to heroic basically notice no change, and at least by adding new mechanics it does spice the fights up a little tiny bit. Anyway, that's the side, my side of the views on the raiding hotfixes. As usual, there have been a number of bug fixes implemented, but the only one that really impacts us raiders is the Fell Lord Zakoon encounter, and he will no longer apply Cloven Soul to targets that have the highest... he will no longer apply Cloven Soul to targets that don't have the highest threat, so i.e. the tank, as he will sometimes choosing targets other than the actual tanking him. And what Cloven Soul is, it's a debuff that makes you take more shadow damage. Now, as a tank, you expect a constant stream of healing. If that happens to be given to a DPS, that's bad. So it means that the healers have to spend way more time healing a DPS player than they should. And if it's a player made mistake, yeah, that should happen still. But if it's the game bugging out, it should be fixed, and that's what's happened here. Okay, so that is, unfortunately for this week, or fortunately, depending which way you look at it, the news for the week. There is very little out there. If you've got something that you need to get in touch with me about, questions or feedback, please email podcast@evangelysm.com. That's EVANGELYSM, or tweet me at evangelismcast, which is EVANGELYSMCAST. Okay, next up on the show this week is Talk, and this week I'm putting the game's technical infrastructure under the spotlight as I ask, is it time for more Realm Connections? You're listening to Evangelism. In today's Talk, I'm putting the game's technical infrastructure under the spotlight, and as I ask, is it time for more Realm Connections? As I mentioned last week, I posted this very same question on the EU forums and was hoping to stimulate a little bit of discussion there. And sadly, I failed horribly, as no one replied. I don't think anyone looked at it. I think I was the only person looking at it. Not even the trolls. Oh man, oh, I failed. I'm horrible. But I'm not bitter. I'll just have a more one-sided opinion on this than I could have had. The discussion obviously is therefore a little bit biased because I've got my own views, and I was hoping for some counter views, but there aren't many of them, if I'm perfectly honest. So it's time to get into the nitty gritty of this topic. So why do I want more realm connections? Basically, it's that time of the expansion where players have hung up the boots, maybe for good, maybe for the summer. I don't know why. Maybe they've gone to play Heroes of the Storm, StarCraft, Hearthstone, WildStar even, or that game called Life. But whatever the reasons, whatever the reasons, whatever the reasons are, the realms are slowly emptying. They are. And that means that there are fewer and fewer players on each realm. And the realms are all quickly feeling very, very empty. Now, I play on Shadowtongue Azure, normally on my main. That's where all my main characters are, and that feels very empty. I've also got characters on MacLeod EU, which is quite a high pop server. It's reasonably evenly balanced as well. It's a very odd server in that respect. But they are feeling very, very empty. 2 seconds. Apologies about that. Right, last expansion, Blizzard connected realms together to form larger communities. And at the end of the expansion, that fixed a lot of the problems with the smaller realms. However, at the beginning of this expansion, it caused a lot of realm animosity, particularly on my realm. I wasn't around on other realms at the time because it was just pointless trying to get onto any realm. We saw the launch caused queues, it caused disconnect because of the problems with the garrisons. It meant that characters got locked into a realm and then couldn't get back in. And a lot of the players on these connected realms were blaming the other characters and players from the other realm that they'd just been connected to. They were pointing fingers, it's all your fault, blah 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 blah. And while the new realm population certainly didn't cause the issues, having larger populations on each server didn't help the issues either. So while there's a need for it, there are also penalties for having too high a population on a server. Basically, so really, where does this leave the future of realm connections? Are we going to see more? Are we not going to see any more? Is it a failed experiment? Was it a successful experiment? There's just no feedback that I've seen from Blizzard to confirm or deny what that stance is on realm connections. Now, my view has always been that the realm connections were the first tentative steps towards merging all realms into a massive collection of realms with the 4 archetype of realm types, the only difference being the region. So at the moment, if I may be not 100% accurate here, but if I remember correctly, there are 5 regions. There is the EU, the US, there are Taiwan and Chinese realms, and then there are generic Asian realms. Now, the Asian side of things I may be wrong on, okay? Now, what I believe the goal is, and as I said, this is a belief, I've got no evidence to support this at all. What I believe the aim is to have in each of those regions a PvE realm, a PvP realm, an RP realm, and an RP PvP realm. So the RP realm is effectively an RP PvE realm. And I expect to see that in the US, the EU, and in Asia, however they split in Asia. Now, one of the other areas that I think may see this split as well is Russia, because Russia has an awful lot of players here in the EU. They've got a very big list of their own servers, and I think that they may be given one as well, particularly because of the language change difference there as well. They could also be grouped with the Asian servers as well, and again in their own separate little pool. And on such a realm, when you've got these 4, basically you're down to 4 realms per region. What you end up with is the ability to recruit from a massive pool of players. Okay, so you've got this massive player population. You'd also have 1 auction house per region because they aren't split by faction anymore. It would smooth out auction prices. It would do a lot of good there too. And apart from that, basically in each region, everything carries on as normal. The only people that would actually notice a big stellar change are the players that are already on these very high population realms. Here in the EU, we've got Silvermoon for an Alliance and Draenor, Kazakh as the big Horde servers. Likewise on the US, I believe Vol'jin is a big one, as is Illidan. There are massive servers out there. And players that are already on these massive realms wouldn't necessarily notice a difference with the player populations, but what they would notice is that you might be bumping into players from other realms more often than you do now. And that's basically the only change that would happen. Now, what this would actually do for Blizzard is it would reduce the number of computers that they need to run the realms on, because they wouldn't necessarily need to be running one for my titchy little realm and one for your titchy little realm. They could basically have us all on one, and what would then happen is when a zone becomes full, they just whip up another server, and I know this sounds flippant, but I work in this sort of environment where you haven't got a server, a computer isn't a computer. What we have is massive, really powerful machines that run hundreds of servers on them. Okay, so as a zone becomes needed or overpopulated, what happens is something triggers in the back of the infrastructure that says, oh, we need another Tanaan, fires up, creates another Tanaan server, players migrate evenly between the two servers that there are now for this zone, and everything carries on as normal. If one of the zones fills up again, you can then create another third one, and then the players are split between the three. Players that are grouped together would stay on the same physical box, well, the physical server, and it just load balances dynamically. Now this all sounds very high tech, but it's already happening in Tanaan, even on a crappy low pop realm like Shadowsong of Jing. So it's clearly a viable option, and the infrastructure is already in place because it is already happening. We're not talking the art of possible, but maybe not being implementable. It's possible, it's happening now. So it's no change. Blizzard are already doing this. It's just how they manage the populations initially. Now what this would lead to is you'd have instance versions of Stormwind. So I might be in Stormwind 1, you could be in Stormwind 21. We want to group, we want to meet up, we would have to group to do that. No big loss there, in my opinion. If you want to be in the same group as me, we can do it. If not, it may be a nice option to be able to give you the option to transfer from Stormwind 1 to Stormwind 21 if you need to for a specific reason. There are of course many other issues that this creates though, and players will complain heavily about the rare spawns becoming harder to farm, ores and herbs becoming rarer and rarer, but would that be such a big price to pay? Really? I mean, we've already had these same arguments thrust upon us when we had the cross-realm zones, and yes, it is a real issue. It is happening out there. It's not people imagining that there are fewer rare spawns. There would be fewer rare spawns because there would be fewer realms. It would also remove the need for people to realm hop using the group finder, because if you were able to choose which zone you went into, it would do that for you, so you could flick between the zones yourself. It causes a lot less issues with that as well. But of course there are bigger issues there, the ones that I consider more real issues, like many characters and guilds would have the same name. How many Legolas hunters have you seen? I remember back in vanilla, I haven't seen one for a while in fairness, but in vanilla I remember seeing dozens of Legolasses on my own realm, and players were getting around the fact that they couldn't come up with an imaginative name for their hunter, that they had to copy a high profile fantasy one with creative ways of spelling Legolas, and they did it, and that was just on one realm. Compound that across a realm that is potentially, you could have 20-30 characters all with the same name, but there's nothing to stop us doing that now. We've got realm connections now, and the way the game fixed that problem was that the historic realm that your character was created on effectively becomes your character or your guild's surname, and it works just fine. It really is only a major problems out there, as I said, for the people that are using the really common names where there's really loads of deliberate misspellings of the name to get it. In the real world, we already have this issue, and life goes on regardless. In fact, on the rare occasions that I met someone with my name, I've been positively excited by the fact that I met them, even if one of them was my old Spanish teacher. And he wasn't the first person that I came across, and I was, what, 13? Wow, I was that young. Oh man, young and arrogant. But anyway, I digress. It isn't an unsolvable problem. We live with it day in, day out already. There are enough ways of making a player name unique, and it already exists in-game, it already exists out of game. There's no reason why we can't get around the problem and just live with it. It's a fact of life, folks. It really is a fact of life. However, I'm not foolish enough to believe that this solution will make guild recruitment any easier, because there are still as many guilds out there fighting for the same number of raiders overall. But what it will do, it will increase your chances of being able to find the right type of person for you. My perfect guild member may be on Silvermoon EU. He may be on Draenor EU, but he can't, well, whatever, realm transfer to that realm. He can't afford to, he doesn't want to, he's got friends on that server that he doesn't want to leave behind, but he still wants to raid with my guild. At the moment his options are limited to realm transferring 1 or 11 characters to my realm. He may not want to realm transfer because he wants to take his army of alts with him and cannot afford it. That's one of the reasons I have not moved my guild, because myself and many of my guild members have many characters that they would want to transfer with them, and that's just a real big financial burden. There are no discounts for migrating all of your characters, and people have friends on their own server other than their guildmates, and it would allow a better match for players across cross-realm without the need for those players to transfer. It's a big commitment transferring to a different realm to join a guild, when you don't really know them. So there would be a lot more recruitment possible, not because the number of players increases, but because the numbers of the right players increase. And there, in fact, it highlights one of the potential major issues, the one of what could be a showstopper: chat channels moving so fast. Now, I've been on high-pop realms when it's really busy, and it's already difficult on a realm like Draenor EU, Silvermoon EU, Kazakh EU to actually make out what's going on in trade, because there's 18 different conversations going on all at the same time, and it's hard to see what is going on. And you throw into the mix their guild recruitment adverts that instead of having just 10 maybe going off at any one time, you'd get 100. It's just way too much noise, and the only way of making your guild's advert to stand out and have a chance of being noticed more would be to spam the message more, and that's, bizarrely, it's both necessary and counterproductive. The more you do it, the more other people need to do it, and the more they do it. It's just this horrible loop, you know? The bigger the problem becomes, the more it needs to become a bigger problem, and I really cannot think of a solution that would work to resolve that. The obvious one being you create a special channel for guild recruitment, but we've already got that and nobody uses it. Maybe time, folks, for you to get your thinking caps on, and if you've got any solutions to this potential problem, please do email me at podcast@evangelysm.com, or send me a tweet to evangelismcast, that's EVANGELYSM. Now, as I also mentioned in today's news, Blizzard have put a few of the paid character services into the game shop this week. Now, interestingly, and I deliberately didn't raise this in the news, none of the realm transfers were among those services, whether that be a character transfer or a guild transfer. Now, maybe I'm reading between the lines here, and there is nothing between the lines, but it could be that there isn't anything there, but it could be because the reason they haven't put this realm transfer option into the guild shop is that they're about to make it obsolete. Is that one of the big announcements that's coming at BlizzCon? Making realm transfers obsolete because we're merging all of the realms in the next 6 months. That would effectively open up free realm transfers from the point in time they announce it to the point in time it happens. And the perfect time to do it is when the realms are low pop, which they are, and when there's not a lot of hope for content in the future, and therefore they wouldn't be jeopardizing the stability of the realms at expansion launch. What they'd end up with is a phased return of people that would slowly test the stability of the realms, to test the process out. Sure, you can do all this testing in the background, but there's nothing more better than a stress test than to put it live and have a real good emergency backup plan. Would Blizzard be prepared to sacrifice the cash cow that is the realm transfers for the long-term good of the game? Would Blizzard be prepared to take the risk of affecting realm stability? If I was Blizzard, I certainly would, if I thought that I was capable of doing it. And as I said, now is the perfect time for it. And the reason that you would be prepared to take the gambles on both counts is because the game is in a real bad place. I wouldn't like to predict it's dying. It's still got 5 million customers, which could be the current world market for MMO players. But if I was Blizzard, I would certainly take the risk, because whatever income they are generating through realm transfers is small potatoes compared to the income that they generate from player subscriptions. It really is, and it's a damn sight more than a dead game is going to give them. In a dead game, how many realm transfers are going to happen? Is it worth chopping the finger off to save the arm? I really do think it is. If the gamble doesn't pay off, what have they lost? They'd lose nothing by dropping realm transfer fees to nothing, to removing realm transfers as a need because of these massive realms. As I said, they've lost nothing by taking the gamble. If it comes off though, they have saved everything. They've saved the game, potentially. Another question to ask here is, could we see this connection happen on a more global scale? Why not merge EU and US realms, or at least allow players to play between the realms? Here in the EU, we've got many French servers, we've got many Spanish-speaking servers, we've got a few Portuguese servers too, and I think we might even have some Italian ones. Now, there is a large community in the US, or at least playing on US realms, where those languages are spoken. South America plays on the US realms. South America has both Spanish and Portuguese speaking countries. Now, I'm not sure on whether the languages are exactly the same in Portugal and Brazil, in Argentina and Chile. I don't know, but I believe they are. I do seriously believe they are, and I think they're common enough to make it so that the two sides of the pond, the EU and the US, could combine into a major region, a worldwide region. There are of course issues of latency, and that actually could be a deal breaker, but in Hearthstone, Heroes, And if I remember correctly, StarCraft, we're able to play with our EU account or your US account on the other side. It is possible, I suppose, now for me to change my realm list to the US realm list and log on as a trial account on the US realms. But currently Warcraft is the odd one out because I can't actually play my main account. I would have to have a new trial account, but I could play a brand new my Warcraft account by creating a new character on a US realm. It would also mean my heirlooms would transfer and everything like that. Currently that wouldn't happen, and that would be a good thing. There's players, I mean, I would love to play it on the US realms with some of you guys. It would be fantastic. I wouldn't necessarily be able to raid because of said latency issues, but it would be good. It really, really would be good. Another recent change, actually, while I think about it, that makes me think that the unification of the regions isn't possibly a thing that Blizzard are working on, is the fact that, was it last year, 2013, 2014, one of those 2 years, Blizzard actually relocated all of the Oceanic servers to Australia from the US, and that was because of the latency issues. Although actually, now I think about it, that doesn't prevent the US and the Australians playing together. That's just where the realms are located. So we could actually see the ability for me to play on an Oceanic realm as well. Now, I don't know whether that would work. I don't know whether the latency makes it unplayable. But yes, I do really think that we could be seeing something big like this coming to BlizzCon this year. And I mean, hell, I would be over the moon if that was the case. I really, really would. If you agree with my views though, or if you don't, if you really think I'm talking a load of poppycock, or if you just like your say on this subject, please email podcast@evangelysm.com, that's evangelysm.com, or tweet me at evangelismcast, that's evangelysmcast. In next week's Talk, I'll be answering the question, are there really only 3 types of raider? Now this is after Blizzard have announced that they've got 3 stereotypes of friends and family for normal raiders, raiding guild and raiding guild members, obviously, for heroic raids, and the truly hardcore raiding guilds and players are the ones that play Mythic. Are there really only those 3 types of raider? That's my question for you next week. I will again be posting this on the EU realms. I'm going to try and post it on the MMO champion realms as well. And this has been sort of cheated in because there is already, this is something that Blizzard have asked us, or Blizzard have told us, and I'm wanting to challenge this because there may not be as many as 3, there may be more than 3. Are we all just raiders? Anyway, that's for next week. That's for next week's Talk. Okay, so have a think, get in touch with the show. You know how to get in touch with me. I shan't repeat it again here now. And next, after this section, comes This Is How We Do It. And in This Is How We Do It this week, as I said at the top of the show, I will be looking at healing the Hellfire Assault encounter in Hellfire Citadel. You're listening to Evangelysm. You're listening to Evangelysm.
This is how we do it. All hands are in the air.
Right, healing Hellfire. So I know it may be a bit late, or maybe even a lot late, for tips on healing Hellfire Citadel, but not everyone has cleared it. Not everyone has. Some players may be switching now to their alts, to a priest or a healer of any description. They may be needing some advice to help them get through the healing. They may be nervous. So I'll start at the very beginning, as I said, and we'll be looking at the Hellfire Assault, and I've just gone completely blank. My mind's gone off onto something else. Damn your real life. Anyway, now, I'm not going to lie to you guys, even at low gear levels, this boss is not too hard. In fact, I'll say it out loud. It's an easy boss encounter. It's not really a boss, it's an encounter. This one is truly an encounter because you're really not dealing with a boss that often. Now, nothing will put anyone at real risk here because there are no really stupid mechanics that will kill you unless you stand in front of a Hellfire Crusher. And yes, I have learned the hard way. So as long as you're not doing anything like really stupid yourself, there is nothing that will one-shot you. You have to be the retard that I was to actually avoid that. So now we've got that statement out of the way, let's look at the obvious. Keep power shield up on your tank. Oh, as a cover, this is only from a disc point of view. I haven't healed Hellfire at all as Holy because of the need for me to be Shadow as an off-spec, so I haven't really had any healing as Holy experience here. This is purely a disc point of view. So, keep powered shield on your tanks. Why? Because that's our default action on every boss. It's our prime directive, if you like. So we always keep powered shield up on our tanks. Now, until Martok goes away, keeping powered shield on your tanks is the thing to do. Okay, it'll be basically the only thing you'll need to do because the damage that everyone else is taking is almost nil, and basically there's not much else to do. And basically use panics aggressively to keep the buff up from that if you've got the set bonuses. So keep panics up, keep Power Chill on your tanks, keep Holy Fire on cooldown, and Smite. The only other thing you may need to look out for is every now and again Martak casts a debuff called Howling Axe. It's targeted on random players and it deals AoE damage if that person doesn't move away from the group. So if your group's taking a lot of damage, find out who's got that blasted Howling Axe and tell them to GTFO. Really do that, and I do mean that. But what you should also do is powered shield them too before the damage hits them. So as soon as you see the debuff is coming in on them, the boss will target them for a very brief time. So if you use the same method I do of having target, target, you should, if you're targeting the tank or the healer or the boss, you should see who she flicks to put that debuff on. So you can shield them as soon as that happens. They can run out, debuff triggers, boom, no one takes any damage because your shield absorbed it all. You're the healing king at this point. Okay, powered shield should also be used though on the Hellfire munitions carriers, because they move faster and you are using body and soul for pretty much everything, yeah, because that is not only a good thing for yourself to have, it also allows you to control players' movement speed by giving them the buff. So you need to be on that one if you can. Okay, so powered shield then the Fel munition carriers, A, as I said, because they're running faster, and B, they're now not taking any dot damage while they run the ammo crate. Cool, yeah? Next up, make sure you're ready for the Siege Nova, which comes from the Hellfire Demolishers, and pre-shield as many people as you can before the mortar goes off. That's the big red thing on the ground. Again, when that goes off, your shield will absorb all of the damage. You're a healing god. The same applies to the gore-bound Fellcasters. When they start casting Metamorphoses, they spam in Hellfire. When they start casting Metamorphoses, that's a horrible word. They start spamming Hellfire Volley, and that does a load of AoE damage. So if your raid's DPS is on the low side, they're going to live a long while, and that's just going to do more and more AoE damage. That's why bad DPS is bad for healers, because it uses your mana bars up at times. So when the AoE damage is coming in, just shield people. If you can, get a powered barrier on the melee group as well in that phase, because you shouldn't be moving around too much as well. If you do happen to get a nasty combo of the Demolishers and the Fellcasters at the same time, make sure you use raid cooldowns. If you've got none left, make sure your other healers have got something in store for you. But really and truthfully, once you've got this fight on farm, the whole thing is sort of a joke. It can be dispatched easily. We've healed it with one healer, I think, with 15 people. You can certainly have a healer for less than or for more than 5 players. At 7 to 10, as I said, my guild are now using one healer per 10-ish players. Depends on the raid size, depends on who we've got raid composition wise as well. But our monk has solo healed it. I haven't tried to solo heal it because disc isn't really good for that sort of thing. Because we haven't got pure heals, we're more of a mitigation than a heal. So, but that's my side of that story. Needless to say though, cooldown usage is minimal. Because there is such a slow fight, there are really no needs to use major cooldowns on that. Because if things go to plan, there's just so little damage coming in and everything else is predictable and you can shield it. Power Infusion, if you've got Power Infusion, use it when the Hellfire Demolisher is up. Powered Barrier can be used on melee during the Hellfire Demolishers too, especially, as I said, if they have got the other debuff as well. Cascade is great for when there are multiple Hellfire volleys going off from metamorphosized Gorebound Fellcasters, and Pain Suppression, save it for a tank specifically, because if they need it, they will need it, but the chances of that are very, very highly unlikely. So basically just keep it and put it out on the tanks when they call for it, and that's on a 3-minute cooldown. So yeah, just deal with it. And that is it for Hellfire Assault healing. Not much to really report there. It is a nice introduction to the raid in terms of healing. Next week we'll be looking at the same type of thing, but for Iron Reaver, which is the second boss in Hellfire Citadel. Now finally, before I go, next week's Talk Talk, as I said, we'll look at the question, are there 3 types of raider, not reeler? There's a lot more than 3 types of healer. Are there 3 types of raider, the 3 archetypes that Blizzard have announced when they've been discussing some things? I can't remember exactly what they were discussing now, but they were discussing raiding and the 3 difficulties of normal, heroic and mythic. What they said is there are friends and family raiders, or guilds for normal raids. Heroic raids are populated by what the Blizzard deem as raiding guilds and raiders. Well, yeah, that makes sense. And of course there is the final difficulty, which is Mythic, which is for our hardcore players. They have got all the high-end stuff, and that is what they deem as Mythic raiders. They are hardcore raiding guilds and hardcore raiders. Anyway, that is it for the show this week, folks. If you have anything to share with me, your views on the question that I've just posed there, or anything we've discussed in the show this week, please do tweet me at EvangelysmCast. That's EvangelysmCast. Use the hashtag on that, by the way, Evangelism31. No, 32. So that's a number 3 and a number 2 in there. So that's EVANGELYSM32 as numbers, not as words. And as I said, I will be posting that question on the EU and on the MMO Champion forums to see what sort of feedback we get this week. Oh, by the way, you can also visit the website, which is evangelysm.com. That's evangelysm.com, and you can find there on that site the station archives and also a link to my blog, which I do not update that regularly anymore. You'll also find the links to iTunes and to Stitcher Radio, and please do subscribe there. It does my my EP a load of good, and it could also help me bring in any sponsors that I may want to put on the website. And if you could also leave a rating for me on iTunes. I'm not going to do what other shows do and say, if you've got a 5-star rating, leave me a rating. While I am interested in my rating, I'm more interested in genuine, honest feedback. So please do be honest. If you think I'm crap, don't just say, hey Ian, you're crap. Just say, hey Ian, you could do better on this because. Okay? And if you think I'm awesome, yeah, tell me why I'm awesome, not just the fact that I am awesome. Because as much as I would like to think that's true, I am not just plain awesome. I am awesome for a reason, maybe, but I'm not just plain awesome. Now, also on the website, there is a big blue button right there on the right hand side. You can leave me a voicemail if you hit that button and leave the message. So please get in touch. One of the 3 ways: EvangelismCast, which is my Twitter account, evangelism.com, which is podcast@evangelism.com, and that's how you can email me or the show. And the Twitter account, the email account, that's the ways to get in touch. If you really can, please folks, it is the best way. If you really must, you can leave a link on my YouTube side, but I don't really check the YouTube channel comments so much because they are generally just plain awful. Plain awful trolling, or just full of crap in there. So, but as I said, leave the iTunes rating, leave a Stitcher rating. I don't know if Stitcher do ratings now I've said that. Leave me a voicemail, leave me a real live email, or tweet me. All my details repeated many times in the show. I shan't do it again. But for now, folks, that's all. Goodbye.